Hello and welcome to Broadening Your Horizons. Today we're going to talk about psychopathology, or the evils, the dark side of nature. It's something that's fascinated me for a very long time, and what spurred me to do this kind of podcast today really was an event that happened today, and I've been meaning to do this talk for some time now, but this event spurred me to make it today, and I might make a few more videos to hopefully complement this kind of introductory. At the moment I'm reading a book called Meeting the Shadow, and it's kind of a collection of various authors talking about pretty much the dark side of nature. Why do we humans get angry? Why do we feel the need to kind of create evil in the world? And how does it kind of manifest itself? And why is it necessary? Is it necessary? And ultimately, where are we going with this evil? From my point of view, we have a huge prevailing piece of evil within our society, and I think it's an ever more increasing importance that we understand this evil. A lot of people shy away from this subject, and it's important to get perspective and get a deeper understanding to our own psychology, and understanding how we have evolved, or where are we evolving to. And when I mean evolving, I just mean kind of how we are functioning and transforming the functions that we use in our day-to-day life. So I'll start by the story today. This is kind of just, I've no notes, I've written no notes, so it's kind of really, but I went to London and went on the train, got on the just a normal, ordinary, everyday train, and as you get on this particular carriage, there's a disabled bay, and I had loads of filming equipment, so I thought, well, I don't really want to be whacking people around the head with my filming equipment, so I just popped. And the disabled bay was free, except for this one guy who was sat there, and there's quite a lot of space in this disabled bay, and I thought, okay, I'll just dump my stuff, put my belongings up in the kind of holders above the head, and it all fitted in nicely, got settled down, and thought nothing of it. Then the next stop, I looked out the window and saw this young lady look very kind of disgruntled and unhappy, and she kind of pointed at me, shouting at kind of my direction, and I was kind of a bit bemused or confused at times to why she was doing those actions. But she, or this family, or friends and family, I say I think there was 5 individuals, but no, some of them didn't. A couple of them didn't speak up that much, but basically they came on the train and wanted to kick us off of our seats, and they do have signs in the train basically saying, "Oh, you can't." Please give up your seat voluntarily if there is a disabled person. and fair enough, a disabled person, and fair enough, rightly so. I think if people and this family had pushchairs, the family had 2 children, couldn't have both of them been any more than 2, I would say. I know it was quite hard to judge young kids. One of them was about just under 1, I'd say, and the other one, was probably about 2. No, but probably 1.5, if that. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I find it hard to judge. But so they they immediately attacked this guy who was next to me, and pretty much just went straight for him. It was as though they and they didn't go for me. I had my earphones in at the time, and I just kind of was in my own little world. I mean, I didn't. But they just immediately went full front and just went off on one and said, "Oh, you need to give up your seat straight away. I've got these kids. You need to move now." La da da. But this train was fairly packed. There wasn't many seats about. I mean, so it wasn't like I could just say, "Okay, I'll move to the next seat." So I'll be giving up my seat and having to stand for the whole entire journey. And what one wonderful of mine was, the whole principle. Me and this guy never moved. We said, "Well, you've come onto this train very without any respect." And at the first we kind of ignored him because it was just kind of like, "Well, are you being serious? Like, is this a joke type? Why are you coming on with this attitude when we haven't done anything to you except sit in these seats that we actually paid for?" So they came on and they were very threatening towards us. But anyway, so eventually it kind of settled down after the guy, the kind of more alpha male. Well, I would say alpha male. He was the only really alpha male of the group. But this family was very what's the word? They wasn't well educated. They wasn't. They didn't really know. I'm trying to think of a respectful manner to put how I perceive the family. They were not well presented, shall I say. They very kind of lower class, if you want to say. I mean, we don't have a huge divide in class system, but in our in terms of kind of perception of people, I perceive we're all kind of equal. So from my perspective, I try not to look down upon people who are in some ways, in many ways, below me, because they don't have the same standards, the same principles as I do, even though that we are all grown up in the same culture. So and this whole family, they all acted like children, pretty much. I honestly, I was saying to the people who I met in London that I've never felt like that since I was back at school, and not say back at school when I was 16, back at school when I was 11 or 12, when we used to have fisticuffs over pointless things and never really kind of truly treat people with respect. But now I'm a little bit older. I've grown to understand you need to give people respect, and when you respect people, they'll give you respect as well. But this whole situation was never dealt with in a mature manner, and considering they had 2 children, and throughout the kind of major conflict, they were actually shouting at us. They disturbed the whole train, and And really, I mean, a side point I've just thought of, apart from us two standing up, nobody else kind of stood up and said, hang on a minute, what are you talking about? Maybe because we were wrong, and that's a prospect that I'm always open to, but maybe it wasn't necessarily right to stay where we was, but anyway, nobody stood up and spoke up for us. We, the guy spoke up for himself, and I backed him up by kind of sticking my guns, because one aspect that I thought of is that, at the time, if I leave, and I'll be leaving him, and he'll be vulnerable to, this guy was being very aggressive. So I thought, well, if I'm leaving, then this guy could theoretically just punch him if he stands his ground. And, he could probably defend himself, but at the end of the day, there's kids there, there's passengers, and we're moving at speed. So any type of conflict, physical conflict, would end up, and there's not much room in the train, so any conflict would end up with collateral damage, unnecessarily, but the other people, this one guy was very aggressive. The other people were aggressive and just totally immature about the whole thing. There was no compassion. There was no. I mean, we. Think in situations like that where you want to give up your seat to somebody, and in fact, there's this whole argument just over giving out seat, and bear in mind that they had children in their pushchairs that stayed in their pushchairs the whole time, and they had plenty of room to have their pushchairs there. It was just seats so they could sit there. So they felt as though, because they had pushchairs with children in there, that the seats that would be available to them must be available because they have pushchairs, and it's a kind of a weird concept of that. Okay, because you have this contraption, you are therefore eligible for a space immediately, and it's that kind of, if a train was really busy, let's say, they may not have been able to get their pushchairs on the train, because I've been on trains before, and getting a wheelchair on a train would be nigh on impossible. Sometimes it can be very, very cramped, very claustrophobic, and it's not a very pleasant experience sometimes, a train. Let alone having to deal with people who are threatening to you because you're not giving up your seat so that they could sit there, even though that they're perfectly capable of standing throughout that journey. I mean, I've had to stand on 2-hour trains and stand the whole journey pretty much. I had to do it the day before that. And it's not, trains aren't very nice, pleasant experience, but you have to deal with it because at the end of the day, I can't afford to get a car the whole time. It costs a hell of a lot more, considering how often I use trains. So maybe, but yeah. So we actually got off at the next stop, and this wheelchair user wanted to get on the train and use this disabled space, and I was then absolutely 100% ready to get up and move. However, the wheelchair got on with this carer or whatever, and they didn't need the space because they was happy where they were, and the wheelchair was quite a big thing, so it would take some kind of maneuvering trying to get it into the wheelchair space as it was, and plus there was 2 pushchairs there now, and 5 individuals, 7 individuals including myself, and this space wasn't very big as it was, but we was all prepared to move because of this wheelchair. I think you should have respect for people who aren't as able as you, but at the same point, if people are as able as you, and they need the space, you should then come with respect and politeness to the people who you want up to then for them to be asked to move. It's just a matter of principles, and they never had any form of kind of moral compassion and very nice attitude about it. I mean, these people are type of people. I'm not trying to stereotype, but type of people you probably get on shows like the Jeremy Kyle show that we have in the UK, or I think Jerry Springer, things like that, where the whole show is based up on people shouting and being very aggressive at each other on screen for dramatic purposes, and they kind of spot these people who, are very willing to have these conflicts on TV just to get a bit of limelight, and possibly they even get money for it. I don't know about that one, but so the whole situation was over 2 seats, and when this disabled person came in, because they didn't need the space, this gentleman, I think he was fairly intimidated. He just wanted to get out of that situation, so fair play to him. That was an excuse for him to stand up and move on, so he kind of went away. But because I kind of stayed, and I had over 2 grand's worth of film equipment with me, so I couldn't just get up and move willy-nilly and kind of just stand there, because I would have to stand in the middle of the aisle, which could be a risk, or could be not really meant to stand in the aisle on the fast-moving trains. And I didn't want to leave my filming equipment, so it was a personal endeavour. Maybe I didn't have full respect for them, but it all stems from this whole beginning of the situation. Was they came in, was very aggressive, and immediately presumed that we had to move because they had pushchairs, and it was a hard one. It's challenging for me to go that scenario, because I want to give kind of charitable deeds of giving up my seat. I mean, it's quite a simple deed, and maybe I should have, but I think if you saw this family, like, you just wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to associate day-to-day activities with these people, and so this kind of leads me to psychopathology, which leads kind of into why we do acts of evil, and it's quite strange that these people carry a heavy kind of weight on their shoulders. It seems they kind of have a chip on their shoulder, if you want to call it that. They seem to just go around their lives, and throughout the whole entire journey, I've got to say that they just tried to take the piss out of us, out of me. When this guy left, he went around the corner, and actually he really didn't help the situation when he came later on and in front of all the people and just said, and put his hand up, shake it, and just said, "Oh, thank you very much for what you did." And I was like, okay. I was like, this really doesn't help the situation, because I feel as though maybe your kind of ego in some ways is destructive because you feel kind of anger towards the situation. But my whole attitude towards the whole thing was making sure that, one, it didn't escalate to violence, and two, to hold my own respect and principles, because I think that for me, that is what, in essence, I carry with my life: respect and principles for and ethics. And if you don't have those, if you don't grow up principles and ethics. I feel as though it's pointless kind of living. It's pointless communicating with people, because actually communication is based on ethics. It's based on an understanding, a mutual respect. It's communicating. It's not rocket science. It's quite in many cultures we have this, and it is generally an understanding. I mean, people who are mature, it's common sense, really. But these people just didn't have it, and I think it seems to be a growing concern, or a growing idea. I feel in society, whether it's just minimalistic, or I mean, this is probably the most outlandish thing I've ever had to deal with personally. I've seen things, but I'm not had to deal with it on a one-to-one basis. But yeah, also carrying on that the end of the story. Sorry, we got to Waterloo Station at London, and we was met by police because the guy decided to call the police. Don't know if that was the right decision, but I thought, well, seeing as the police are there, what I'll do is put my name in the hat and say, well, I sat next to him, and if he decides to, whatever the outcome of what's going to happen, because I knew straight away that those police were for the people. When I got out of the train, this guy went straight to the police and spoke to them. And also another thing that I didn't understand is why there was no guards on the train. And I may write a letter to the train company just to point it out, is that we did have a dispute on the train, and there was no guards from the company. Nobody handled the situation from the company, and nobody even from the other point of view told us to, and said, right, to handle this properly, do you mind if you move to another seat? And from my point of view, I would have said, only if you find me another seat, because it does get a bit annoying where you keep taking trains to London and never get a seat, especially when it's an hour's training. You're like, oh god, I've got an hour traipse around London trying to find my destination, and that takes some time as well. But kind of waffling. So my introduction, this is my story to my introduction, and of why we have evil. I feel there's something underlining our culture, and it's a more subconscious element to but manifests itself in certain situations. And there are some people that strive off this energy, this negative energy, and there's some people that kind of get engrossed, maybe without even really conscious awareness, and it breaks down marriages, it breaks down families, because it doesn't just emanate from parents, it emanates from children. I mean, you could have probably the most meaning parents in the world, but if they give themselves up to state education, for instance, it's just an example, but state education kind of puts yourself in situations where other children who have these psychological tendencies to kind of, who have been brought up by other negative children, they could get kind of caught up in the whole battle with other children. So to kind of wrap this up, I would like to kind of give you the introduction of this book I'm reading, and then I'll follow this up with a few other videos with my research, there's a few books that I still even need to buy yet, let alone research them. But I'm just taking it one step at a time, and hopefully correlating this research into some talks and videos or something, so I can even just listen to it in my own time. But so kind of my thoughts of just even general reality of how these because I'm leaning towards the idea that we have these entities even within us, and they emanate out of us. We basically live in a evolving information biometric body, meaning that we have a certain measurements through biology where our perception is an information field, and that is what we are, and we are continuously bringing in information from the external world and actually excreting information. We can't just continuously build up information, we have to excrete it. And I believe I've brought on this point in my perception kind of videos before, whose origins extend from external intelligent genetic manipulation of the biometric body. So there are various, you might call them ETs, but I don't know whether it's physical entities. I mean, I have researched a lot of the ideas of UFOs and aliens, and the ideas that maybe we were created out of extraterrestrial beings, but I've never seen any kind of strange ships in the sky. I've seen some strange kind of lights, but I've never seen ships. I've never seen probably things. I've never seen any aliens. I've never really had any kind of strange activities, paranormal activities. But I've researched it and I'm interested in it. So, and even when you have an experience, when you research it, you do think maybe, well, am I just hallucinating? So you kind of brush it to one side and forget about it. And but so we are this genetic, and they've genetically manipulated us. They've transformed our DNA, our kind of information that we're receiving, and created this whole facade, this system that we have. But we are multi-dimensional entities, and there are multi-dimensional entities, meaning that we all live in this timeless, even space. Well, we live in space, but there are dimensions that exist without space and without time. So we live in a space-time paradigm, or kind of thing. But out of that comes other kind of it's hard to describe because they're not tangible. They're not like, yeah, this is it, because it's it's very hard to tangibly prove something that's not tangible. So we live in we are a multi-dimensional entity. We can actually, through our bodies, through the information field, our frequencies around us, access these dimensions, because they're just a frequency, another kind of wavelength. And these other multi-dimensional entities, who kind of, they feed off negative fear and emotions, and they even manifest themselves. So it's a kind of regurgitation kind of cycle, and we are the vessel, would you say, that it uses, whether it's physical entities, whether they manifest themselves physically, and these, or I think it's more of a psychological level, that these emanate us through the subconscious and through they feed off our negative existence that we naturally have. I think every thing in nature has a natural negative tendency. It's the polarities of positive and negative. You have it. You can see it within the magnetic spectrum or magnetic. I can't remember electromagnetic spectrum, but it's magnetism. It's electricity and magnetism. They're two opposites, and you have positive and negative, and blah blah blah. So, and out of that existence, we see the destruction of our humanity. But we go through, I think we do go through cycles of where the energies in the whole world, the universe, our solar system and everything, certain energies and frequencies allow for these multi-dimensional beings to manifest themselves more easily and more freely, and unless we are conscious, because consciousness is the only key, for me it's the key that we can unlock a way to, because consciousness is awareness, and if we are aware of what it could be, and some of it seems like fiction, it seems like science fiction, but when you look into the possibilities, especially in science gives us incredible ways of examining the world we see through testing and theory and practice. And it's that practical element that's really crucial to understanding of it. If it can't be proven tangibly, then and we know we can prove that there's dimensions out there. If you really want to go to the mainstream scientists involved, Richard Stephen Hawkins, thinking of Richard Dawkins, but Stephen Hawkins talks about multi-dimensional realities, and that we live in this. It's not totally out there theory. So, trying to get back on track to my point, and trying to round this up. So coming back to this situation on the train, because it seems kind of a bit bewildered to talk about the introduction of negative energies and negative emotions to a situation firsthand in the 3D environment with people, our life. But it's a situation that I don't know whether I was wrong. I don't know whether I'd done the right thing by standing my ground because I got my own principles and I'm maybe a bit stubborn and arrogant, or whether they were completely wrong, or both. Probably both. But throughout that, it was probably about half an hour of just pure, I was sat there and I was a bit pissed off throughout the whole journey, just the way they spoke to everybody, various attitudes, and I just didn't enjoy there was just such a negative energy around me. I'm more and more becoming aware of my surroundings and becoming aware of the energies around me. And I do find if you become more aware of it, if you follow this, you obviously have if you're listening to this, but if you're aware of your energies around you, it feels like you kind of get attracted to different other energies. Energies is a very vague term. What I'm trying to say is you get attracted to being that awareness, that conscious awareness of trying to feel your environment. When you go out in nature, you feel a totally different person to when you have an argument with somebody, you feel a totally different person. And if to be honest, I think if we were all in a field on our own, just in a massive field with cows, with the sunrise of birds singing, just the most euphoric sight. And there was a different situation at hand, but there was a situation that could have arose into an argument, such simple as you nicked, or you've say not nicked, but you've got a seat that is rightfully mine. If that type of argument would arise, I don't think it would have happened in nature. I don't think nature is that cruel on human perception. It may just be a concept that humans have created, and that there's not this extraterrestrial side of things. But looking at kind of the possibility that we have entities, conscious entities. I mean, they know what they're doing. That if we are more in tune with nature, I don't think we would have these situations. And it's these confined spaces, these spaces where there's not a free flow of nature. I'm not been able to describe it that well, but because I've not experienced it in a kind of an ultimate euphoric kind of experience. I do need to get in nature a little bit more, but yeah. In closing, I don't think that we humans or nature is inherently evil, and I don't think humans are inherently evil. I think it's something to do with a more say sinister and more dynamic interpretation. But anyway, thank you for listening, and please subscribe, and I will see you soon. Thank you. Bye.